Good evening. First, our breaking news tonight. Slovakia's Prime Minister is in a life-threatening condition after being shot multiple times in a suspected assassination attempt. Robert Fico has been airlifted to a hospital and a suspect reported to be in his 70s was detained at the scene. These images show Mr. Fico this morning arriving in the town of Handlova, which is 93 miles away from the capital Bratislava, for government meetings. He actively engaged with members of the public before the assassination attempt, which happened at around 2:30 local time. It's been reported that he was shot 4 times around the stomach, and these images shortly after show his staff bundling him into a car. In the immediate aftermath of the assassination attempt, we can see police officers and local people helping each other to detain the 71-year-old suspect. Shortly after, the team of the Prime Minister confirmed that he was in a life-threatening condition. His condition was so serious that he could not be transported all the way to Bratislava due to the necessity, they say, of an acute procedure. So he was airlifted instead to a hospital in the Banksa Bystrica region. That's roughly 63 miles away from Handlova. Here, the Defence Secretary, Grant Shapps, gave this reaction.
Really shocked, of course. I mean, this is a European country, the Prime Minister being shot at, I understand, several times and in a serious condition. As we speak, thoughts go to his family, first and foremost, but also, of course, to the Slovakian nation as well. This will be very shocking all round, and we wish him a speedy recovery.
Let's speak to our correspondent, Darren McCaffrey, who has met Robert Fico a number of times. First of all, Darren, before we speak about him as a politician, just bring us the latest that you have.
Well, of course, the main concern is the medical condition that the Prime Minister finds himself in. As you say, he is in a life-threatening or has life-threatening injuries, and he is in hospital clearly seeking treatment. I suspect we will get a further update from the authorities in Bratislava as the evening goes by. There's also clearly interest in the potential perpetrator, who he was. We know he's a 71-year-old man and that he is in police custody. Beyond that, we don't know very many details. We certainly don't know what the motivation behind this attack was, but certainly it is an attack that has shocked Slovakia. Never before has the country seen an attempted assassination like this, and we should be frank about this. That is how the authorities are describing this, as an attempted assassination. This is a country that's seen incredible political turmoil in the past. It clearly emerged from the Soviet Union. It is a country in which an investigative journalist, a very famous one, got assassinated in 2018 that led to mass protests. But we have never seen an attack on a politician like this. And listening to people all afternoon, speaking to Sky News and indeed people in the country, the one word that comes across is that they are shocked that this has happened. And clearly the police will be trying to find out what motivated this attacker as quickly as possible.
Now, as I was saying, you have met him a number of times. What is he like? What sort of politician is he? What sort of man is he?
In many ways, he's a familiar figure in the sense that he's a populist politician on the right who is pretty brutal with his politics. He does not mince his words. He speaks pretty freely, but he's got an element of charisma that makes him popular with a relatively large section of the Slovakian population. He's an incredibly successful politician. This is a man, Mark, who was involved in Slovak politics before Slovakia even existed, when it was Czechoslovakia back in the early 1990s. He's the longest-serving Prime Minister in history. He began his 4th term back in October. He ran on a platform about trying to veto Ukraine's accession to NATO. He was, frankly, against the war and wanted to see a peace settlement. He also has leaned into being slightly more pro-Russian than many of his counterparts in Europe. And also he talked about the instability that the war has caused. And I think probably quite acutely people in Eastern Europe have felt that instability more so than us here in Western Europe. But he is also an incredibly polarising figure, be in no doubt about that. At the last election, yes, he won and his party won, but only with 23% of the vote. He's cobbled together a coalition. And in doing so, he's managed, I think, to anger even more Slovakians with some of the approaches he's taken, not least of all with his attacks on the media. But he is popular, particularly with rural voters who tend to be older, who tend to be more sympathetic to Russia, having grown up in the USSR, and who are also very conservative on social issues and are very supportive of the Catholic Church. And that is in contrast to many younger voters, many middle-class voters who live in cities like Bratislava, who are not big fans of this Prime Minister and feel that he is taking the country down a more authoritarian route, that do not like the arguments he has with Brussels and do not like his stance when it comes to Ukraine. So politically, he is an incredibly divisive figure. He's also a very prominent figure. This is a man, as I say, who's been involved in Slovakian politics for decades. He's the most successful long-running Prime Minister. Aside from that, though, that does not lead us to any of the motivation that might have led to this attack today, and it's quite difficult to work out. But as you've also suggested, lots of leaders have talked about the shock, about the awful news, not least of all our own Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. The German Chancellor has also weighed in, calling it a cowardly assassination attempt. And also this from Viktor Orban, who is not just a political leader and a neighbour, but also a friend of the Prime Minister. They share quite similar politics, and in many ways, I think it's fair to say that Robert Fico has tried to emulate Viktor Orban, the Hungarian Prime Minister. He said that this was a heinous attack against his friend. So the shock, not just inside Slovakia, but indeed in European politics. But I think there will be a reflection on those deep divisions, those political deep divisions within Slovakia as well.